Today we are going to talk about the Chinese Massacre of 1871. If topics such as these trigger you, please scroll. In 1871, Los Angeles was a small city of 6,000, marked by filth and violence. LA's homicide rate was higher than New York City and Chicago, but only had 6 police officers to maintain law and order. Many of the crimes occurred on an unpaved street lined with gambling parlors and saloons. Of the 172 Chinese people living in LA as of 1870, half of them resided on this street. In the 1850s and 1860s, the Chinese people that lived there weren't subject to too many hate crimes, but this changed in 1869. This is when the Los Angeles News and the Los Angeles Star newspapers began running editorials condemning Chinese immigration, claiming that Chinese people were inferior and immoral. In October 1871, a dispute between 2 Chinese men from rival organizations broke out over the kidnapping of a Chinese woman. Things quickly escalated into a shootout. 2 police officers arrived to the scene. One officer was wounded, and a civilian, Robert Thompson, who owns a saloon, was killed trying to put out the altercation. The 2 Chinese men fled to the Colonel building. It wasn't long after that word spread about the death of Robert Thompson. On October 24, 1871, a group of 500 people, representing 10% of LA's population, got together and forced 18 Chinese people out of the Colonel building. These individuals were dragged to Thompson's Corral and Goler's wagon shop. John Goler, owner of the wagon shop, protested, but was silenced when a gun was pressed to his face. One of the victims was a respected doctor. His name was Dr. Jean Tong. He begged for his life and offered $3,000 in gold in his diamond wedding ring. The rioters did not want to hear it. They silenced him by shooting him in the mouth and cutting off his finger wearing his wedding ring. Rioters then hanged him, along with 6 others, on the portico crossbar of Goler's wagon shop. 8 victims were hanged on makeshift gallows at Thompson's Corral. The last 3 victims were brought to a nearby freight wagon and hanged from the high side of the wagon. The next day, 17 of the 18 victims were laid out in the jail yard. The one who had not been laid out, the first man hanged, was buried the day before. Of the participants of the gunfight, all but one of the victims were not involved in it. 10% of LA's Chinese population were murdered that day. 8 rioters were convicted on manslaughter charges, but they were overturned on legal technicality. Local newspapers made no mention of the massacre. Unfortunately, anti-Chinese sentiment increased in the following years, and in 1876, an anti-Chinese club was created, comprised of many prominent LA citizens. Rest in peace to the individuals that lost their lives in the Chinese Massacre of 1871.